Good afternoon, everyone. Alliance Airlines would like to invite all passengers travelling on flights QQ8642 through to Moomba. Please have a boarding pass ready for inspection at the gates and again on board the aircraft. Alliance Airlines would like to wish you a pleasant flight. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you're enjoying your lovely 2GR entree, I want to welcome all of you here at Moomba. My name is Garrett Veldsman and I'll be your MC tonight. And as you can see from my hat, we're maybe in a gas-rich area, but we're big on mining and big on resources. So welcome everybody. Can I please thank Kevin Gallagher and the Santos team for hosting us. And it's great to see all the blue fluoro shirts in the room tonight. So thank you very much. And can we give a hand to the Santos team for hosting us? Coming to the sponsors for tonight, major partners Hancock Prospecting and Santos, thank you very much. Platinum sponsors MGM Bulk, Handroyd, Roy Hill, Aitken Mount Capital Partners, Course Chambers, Westgrave, and Hitachi Construction Machinery. Thank you very much. Gold sponsors Atlas Iron and McNally Mining. Silver sponsors Wabtec, SRG Global, MACA, and Chamber of Minerals and Energy WA. And our food sponsor, Bannister Downs and 2GR Wago. And tonight, we've got fantastic Wi-Fi, thanks to Focus, with their rapid satellite pod, which display at the entrance, and you're welcome to check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening wouldn't have been possible without the vision and the dedication of the founder and co-patron of National Mining Day, Mrs. Gina Reinhardt. It's now my pleasure to welcome her to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Gina Reinhardt.
Good evening, distinguished guests and friends, and a very warm welcome to National Mining Day, to our terrific host Santos, and everyone present who works in our essential resources industry. And in that I include all related businesses. Thank you to the team at Santos for so warmly welcoming us all to Moomba. The platform we are on was especially built for us by Santos to be able to see their gas plants throughout our gala dinner. And Santos even improved their roads for our pre-dining tour. The flowers on our tables are in beautiful Santos colours. Big thanks, Santos. And of course, huge thanks to our wonderful sponsors. Great to be with you all for our National Day. Shouldn't we really have a national month or two, given our industry's contribution? Well, Santos and Hancock are almost the same age. I'm actually the oldest of the lot. Santos was incorporated in March 1954, a month after my birth, whilst Hancock was founded only a year or so later in November 1955. Happy 70th birthday, Santos. You, meaning Santos, have contributed immensely to our country. Thank you. And don't you just love the saying, drill, baby, drill? Essential for getting gas to supply homes and industry around Australia. Well, maybe it's just a little timid whisper out here in Australia now, as it's getting so darned hard to drill, baby, drill. And our government wants to see the end of the fossil fuel industry, your industry. We'll soon hear from CEO Kevin of Santos. Isn't it timely we hold National Mining Day, where gas has been produced and supplied reliably to Australians for more than 50 years? These days, some like to claim that our country can run on sunshine and windmills. By all means, put these on your own properties if you wish, but please stop forcing this on us taxpayers when the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always make it to your solar panels. Natural gas provides the stability required for sectors where energy unreliability isn't an option. Those who don't want to use gas or other fossil fuels, let them choose not to use, so long as they dispose safely of the toxic solar panels. But please don't make us taxpayers pay for more pollies, bureaucrats and billionaires' luxurious gubfests around the world in aid of banning fossil fuels. This expensive net zero cult Thank you. Love audience participation. This expensive net zero cult sure likes to use lots of fossil fuels for their many, many trips, including using hundreds of private jets. Does anyone here want the taxpayer to keep funding these trips? You're welcome to stand up. Nobody. Just what I thought. Hancock has been investing in natural gas for the past few years. Our investment alongside our Korean partner POSCO in Senex Energy, where despite the challenges of the delay of ill-thought and damaging government intervention, we've managed to jointly invest a further $1 billion to triple Senex's production from 2022 levels. Our executives and I will be attending the opening of Senex's latest facility after our National Day because people in the East need gas. Those who want reliable energy, please make the time to advocate for sensible policies that encourage additional supply and cutting those policies that don't. Price control, like rent control, plus approval delays, the wrongly named Nature Positive Plan, we actually thought this had died its natural, not positive for Australians' death. Well, it will be the death of the Labor Party at the next election if the ALP is foolish enough to pass this and other market interference. None of this encourages more supply. Without more supply, prices will rise, impacting consumers already suffering from the cost of living crisis and businesses that rely on natural gas. And many struggling businesses who can't afford more expense or unreliability. But CEO Kevin, who really knows gas, will be speaking to you tonight, so I'll hand over his subject to him. 22nd November is an important date in our national calendar. It is an opportunity to celebrate everything that our mining and related industries provide to our country and to our living standards, and indeed provide to our allies too. We do try hard to make our National Day celebrations an occasion to look forward to. Thank you, all my overworked team staff. Thank you, we couldn't do it without you. I think I've already thanked Santos, but let's do it again. Thank you, Santos. Now it's a time to focus on mining, because when mining doesn't do well, nor do Australians. Recently published data from the Tax Office shows that the mining sector has, for the second year in a row, paid more tax than all other sectors of the economy combined. 43.1 billion. On top of this, according to the MCA, the mining sector provides a further 31.5 billion in royalties. And on top of all this comes more billions in the company people's personal income tax, payroll taxes, and other fees. I repeat, shouldn't we have more than one national day? But what does 74.6 billion in just 2 of the tax payments actually mean in dollars for Australians? To put in perspective, those 74.6 billion alone, without all the other billions, is enough to pay for our entire defence budget, plus all the federal expenditure on schools, plus all federal expenditure on roads, and leaving some change to spare. After a significant increase in health expenditure, Australian taxpayers spend almost 200 million each and every day to run our public hospitals, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. The mining industry's tax and royalty contribution alone is worth over 205 million per day. Australia has some of the highest living standards the world has ever seen. This took massive levels of investment, construction of mega projects, and the work of hundreds of thousands of people employed across our resources sector. We have been reaping the rewards of investments made into our mining and related industries over decades. Can we take this success for granted? We have now seen for the last 6 consecutive quarters our living standards measured in GDP per capita falling. This is the longest running decline in our national living standards on record. Record business failures, record and rising national debt, rising inflation, and our cost of living crisis. This is not a time for linos, timidly fiddling around a few edges, careful not to upset the minority noises or rapidly increasing bureaucrats, none of whom will ever vote for the coalition. We need to make Australia great again, don't we? Let's consider the USA on one hand, bringing in Doge to ensure tapes are cut and company tax is soon to be 15%, plus a drill baby drill president, as against Australia. Well, our company tax rate's double that. So far, the coalition has brought in more government tape and regulations than the socialist Whitlam government ever had. Commitment and action to significantly cut is badly needed, not lino words. Capital is already flooding out of Australia. Hence, we need to act fast. Where are the mammoth investments in Australia being made today? Where is the next Roy Hill that is going to pay high wages and contribute billions in taxes and royalties to state and federal governments? What has happened to this $29 billion gas project for our north when the minister later stated she wouldn't delay the project to protect a dangerous grey sea snake, a snake capable of killing us? Months have passed and that approval process continues. As the federal budget acknowledges, mining investment, quote, primarily reflects expenditures to maintain existing resource production capacity. When you subtract from this level of investment amounts that companies are having to spend on green infrastructure, in order to meet the increased green ideology burdens, along with amounts driven by inflated construction costs, which the CME have recently stated have increased by some 23% over the past 4 years. The actual amount of money flowing into building productive new mining projects in Australia, ones which could supply future revenue, is critically low. Further, the MCA has warned that 80% of the projects in the major resources project pipeline are simply not likely to proceed. It's no longer a pipeline of nation-building and wealth-bidding resources projects, but primarily a list of casualties of excessive government tape and ideological policies. This should be a wake-up call. The siren alarm has gone off. Casualties include an almost ready-to-go gold project, McPhillamys. I hope I pronounced that right. Yes, our government has made a choice to make it much harder to develop resource projects essential to maintain our living standards. And Santos, they want to close yours. Even in resource-rich West Australia, the Fraser Institute Index has shown West Australia has fallen from 4th place to 17th place last year. This is not the time for linos, I repeat. If we want this to change, it's the time for leadership with courage. Let's not be frightened to learn from the success of President-elect Donald Trump. Thank you. This president-elect surrounds himself with people who already are an outstanding success, so that he can deliver Make America Great Again. So what should we do? As I have repeatedly stated, we need to cut government tape, regulations, government wastage, and tax burdens across Australia. We need a USA-style DOGE, that delivers action, one that helps to return dollars to our pockets and investment back to Australia. Don't be frightened to call for, quote, make our bank accounts great again, close quote. We need governments to reduce the number of approvals required for projects. The first to go should be the federal departments, which repeat what the state departments already do. Certainly not, oh, well, let's try and just say if they comply with, government, federal departments, then that's okay. That's not what we mean. Lessening the complexity, delays, and expense of both state and federal departments. We need to return to reliable and cheaper energy. Stop taxpayer funding of unreliable green energy and its incredibly expensive infrastructure. Let business decide if they want to invest in green without being forced to do so. We need a return to the up path that I have spoken about. The up path means implementing policies that see our investment, opportunities, and living standards go up. At the moment, unfortunately, our governments are sending us down the down path. We see this with productive investment disappearing overseas, declining living standards over 6 consecutive quarters, record business failures, increased inflation. Is this what the majority of Australians want? We should be watching and learning from the recent announcement now showing on the screen. Great words, aren't they? Following President-elect Trump's Tasami victory, that he will be establishing a Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk and fellow billionaire Vivek Ramaswamy, very brilliant chap, both are, leading the change. They will achieve significant cutting of the tape, yes, significantly, not the lino preferred word streamlining, when even the chair of ASIC has recently said there is too much tape to cope with. That's from ASIC. Doge will cut government intrusion, cut government waste, and enable President-elect Trump to cut taxes. You've got to cut the other first before he can properly cut taxes. To enable tax cuts here in Aussie, we need to cut government expenditure and waste. Out with the failed approach, that being let's get the bureaucracy-friendly Treasury to cost tax cuts. Treasury don't want to cut bureaucracy, their club, or recognise that cutting taxes leads to revenue growth, who then advise, quote, we can't afford. Instead, let's decide to cut the government waste, then we can afford. If we truly wanted to consider the terrible pressure the rising costs of living is causing many Australians, drop the excise tax on fuel completely and immediately. This would have a positive impact for families at not only the petrol pump, but on all their goods and services that require transportation and/or fuel for production. Cut out the duplicated federal departments, have the courage to sell the ABC radio, and close the ABC TV, like the opposition leader in Canada, Pierre, has courageously announced he will do. Cut out expenditure on the Environmental Defender's Office. Sell the pot plants and artefacts from the departments and agencies' office. They can bring their own. These are just some of the many opportunities to cut out expenditure and wastage to make way for tax cuts. We all know what happens when government tape and tax is cut. But strangely, that Canberra cocoon doesn't. Please remind them often. We saw this under the last Trump administration. We saw it under President Reagan. They massively cut tape and taxes, and Americans flourished. Let's remind our Aussie politicians and try to persuade the linos that governments do not create wealth, and that if they want to see higher investment, higher living standards, higher wages, more jobs, new technologies and innovation, more business basing themselves in Australia and creating jobs and paying taxes, more to Treasury, we need to massively cut the onerous burdens that governments, plural, place on businesses. Last National Mining Day, when we were at Roy together, I showed videos from Elon Musk, Canadian Leader of the Opposition, Pierre, and our great former Governor-General, the Honourable Sir Peter Cosgrove. All outstanding, brave leaders. This year, I'd like to leave you with a quote from another brave, outstanding leader, the President of Argentina, Milei, I'm not sure how to pronounce, I'm so sorry. Quote, the collectivism and moral posturizing of the woke agenda have collided with reality and no longer have credible solutions to offer to the actual problems of the world. End quote. The Americans and Argentinians have recognized the reality of this and voted. There's something else I'd like to say, and that is that there was a very famous book written called The River of Tears. It had a useful message for today. Appease the crocodile and let it devour you last. Well, I think our corporates have tried that, and it hasn't worked. The left elite are not the corporates' friends. So, thank you once again for joining us to celebrate our important National Day, and thank you to our wonderful sponsors. Thank you to all our fantastic speakers in buses, both en route to Moomba and later on return. I hope you all enjoy our time together here at Santos. And please never forget, we all need to stand up to make our voices heard and deliver the messages to our government that they have got us on the down path with their current policies. Let's help deliver that up path. Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas and thank you.
It's a great privilege to introduce another video to you, that of the Honourable Peter Dutton, who couldn't be with us tonight but wanted to send a message.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person. We're sitting in Parliament at the moment, but let me first congratulate Gina Reinhardt and Tad Wetruba as patrons of this National Mining and Related Industries Day. I thank them sincerely for the leadership they provide in a sector so critical to our national economy. But can I also commend each and every one of you for whatever role you play, be it on a mining site or off. Each and every one of you makes our mining and related industries tick. And when mining does well, as you well know, our nation does well. Mining underpins our national prosperity, and over the last decade, mining has contributed some $356 billion in company tax and royalties. It's something that should be taught to every school child, not just on the West Coast, but more importantly, on the East Coast as well. The funding has gone a long way. It's helped not just health and education, but the NDIS, aged care, and many other national projects, building an upgrade of roads, rail, bridges, and we should all as a country be very grateful to the mining sector for that assistance. It's helped to provide our military with state-of-the-art equipment. Put simply, the revenue generated by mining helps to build Australia, care for Australia, and to defend Australia. And yet this reality is overlooked by the current federal Albanese Labor government. The once pragmatic Labor Party run by Hawke and Keating is gone, and the modern Labor Party under Mr Albanese has turned its back on workers and primary industries across the nation. It's now a party which panders to social and environmental activists, to inner city Green voters, and of course to the big union bosses who want new power in national life. Consequently, this government has pursued a hostile agenda towards mining, and it's sidelined the national interest in the process. Consider the government's environmental policy. They funded activists to wage lawfare to stymie key projects. These activists have targeted offshore LNG projects in the Northern Territory and in Western Australia. And now Regis's $1 billion gold mine in New South Wales is in their crosshairs. The government's also passed new mandatory climate disclosure laws. When they come into effect, businesses will not simply have to account for their own emissions, they'll also have to account for emissions produced along their supply chain, including by small business suppliers. All of that cost is going to be passed on to consumers. The government's also pressing ahead with the green tape agenda. And make no mistake, this agenda is about putting environmental goals ahead of economic ones, rather than striking a balance. The regulatory burdens are going to get even worse. We can expect the government to double down on using Commonwealth environment and cultural heritage laws to stymie even more projects. Already our resource sector presents an unacceptable level of risk to many of our partners. We're seeing investment withdrawn and a flight of capital out of Australia. Consider the government's industry policy too. The Future Made in Australia Fund is simply about this government picking its own winners while sidelining known market winners. The Prime Minister has said not a single government dollar would be invested in gas under his Future Made in Australia plan. And tellingly, between 2022 and 23 alone, almost 60% of our iron ore, coal and gas major projects were delayed, disrupted or put on hold. That has come at a cost of $68 billion of lost investment, and we can't afford that as a country. Consider the government's industrial relations policy too. Multi-employer bargaining was foisted upon coal miners in New South Wales, and we're now seeing a push to reunionise the Pilbara. Roping mining companies into multi-employer bargaining will only cause uncertainty, cost impositions, disruption and risks to investment. Labor's changes risk undoing thousands of successful workplace agreements and agreements which have allowed mining to flourish and workers to receive higher wages. Consider too the government's energy policy. Labor is pressing ahead with a reckless renewables-only plan. It's committed to rolling out weather-dependent energy on an industrial scale. Electricity costs are already skyrocketing, and we know that families can't afford it. Economic analysis released last week reveals that the actual cost of Labor's plan on the East Coast is 5 times more than what it says. That's a $500 billion black hole, and that's a conservative estimate. Households, businesses and industries will be paying for more of that cost at a time when they can least afford it. And over the coming decades, we know that Labor's renewable-only push will have very significant consequences right across the economy. As the cost of electricity goes up, our competitiveness, of course, goes down. So at every turn and in every way, in a short 2.5-year period, the Albanese government is hindering our resource industries. And if they're re-elected, the next 3 years will be even more difficult. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent years and across the world, we've seen multiple examples of parties in government seeking to increase the power of the state. In this desire for greater government control, we've seen agendas which involve the following: more taxation, more spending, more public servants, more regulation, and more interference in the economy. The Albanese government is no exception. Whenever and wherever we see this push for bigger government, it hasn't led to better government. Families are worse off, businesses are going bust, and industries are going backwards. And as we're seeing, many democratic citizens in countries across the world are rejecting this big government push. They're voting for change. And the coalition is ready to restore lean government, to re-energise the economy and to revive confidence in our nation. We will rein in Labor's reckless spending to make sure that we can lower inflation and alleviate the cost of living crisis. We will take the pressure off the housing crisis, and that includes reducing the permanent migration program by 25% for 2 years and returning it to sustainable levels in years 3 and 4 and beyond. We will get power prices down by ramping up domestic gas production in the more immediate term, and in the longer term, we will have Australia join the growing league of nuclear-powered nations. We must do that to shore up clean, cheap and consistent energy for the future. I also want to unleash the magic of the marketplace. I'm keen to rip up as much red and green tape as possible, and that's essential for our international competitiveness and making our nation a mining and manufacturing powerhouse again. Friends, I make you this promise. A Dutton coalition government will be the best friend the resource sector in Australia will ever have. We will slash project approval times in half by capping assessment timeframes and restricting stop-the-clock provisions. We will accredit states and territories to provide approvals which meet Commonwealth legislation requirements. We will reintroduce geological bioregional assessments in key regions to unlock new projects. We will include gas in the capacity investment scheme, and that will drive investment in recognition of the crucial role that gas plays in our energy mix. We will defund the activist-led Environmental Defenders Office. We will limit the ability of third parties to challenge decisions under the EPBC Act. We will do all these things because I want to turbocharge mining in Australia. I want to build on our strengths in major commodities like iron ore, coal, gas, gold and copper. I want to lean into growing opportunities like critical minerals, rare earths and uranium. Indeed, uranium will be even more important as more nations build zero emissions reactors. I want to see more excavators digging, more gas flowing and more trucks moving, because when they do, mining families benefit and millions of families across the country benefit too. The next federal election will be a simple choice between 3 more years of a Labor government or a Labor minority government with the Greens that will double down on its hostility to mining and hold back our national prosperity. Or electing a new coalition government which knows that getting our country back on track means getting mining moving full steam ahead. I hope that all in your sector have the opportunity to thrive. I really do. We will have your backs, and I hope that you'll have ours as well. Gina, a final word to you. I want to say thank you very much for your friendship, but also the way in which you have championed this industry. The leadership you've provided, you're not only bettering our nation through your philanthropic deeds, but you're also playing a pivotal role in contributing to our national debate. Thank you for speaking up on many issues that are in our country's best interests, be that on tax reform, on bolstering our nation's defence, on having a managed and sustainable migration program, on the need to eliminate government inefficiency and waste, on the importance of eradicating indoctrination from our classrooms, and much, much more besides. It takes courage to speak up on these issues because you, like many of us, become subject to a torrent of abuse from the vocal illiberal left and the keyboard warriors. But I know that it doesn't deter you one inch. Your courage speaks to your patriotism, so thank you for being a patriot. Thank you for voicing concerns which are shared by quiet, patriotic Australians across our great country. Ladies and gentlemen, I join with you in celebrating this National Mining and Related Industries Day. I hope that our best days are ahead of us, and I wish you every success into the future. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, Kevin Gallagher couldn't make it here tonight, but he did send us a brief video message, so I would like to play that video message now.
Welcome to National Mining Day, and welcome to Moomba. Thank you, Gerhard, and to Mrs. Reinhardt, who has been the engine room behind the National Mining Day initiative, and perhaps our country's greatest advocate, not just for the resources sector, but for our agricultural sector, our veterans, our national swimming team, and through her support of iconic Australian brands. I also want to acknowledge distinguished guests, including not one, but 4 federal parliamentarians from Queensland, who are great friends of the resources sector. Senators Susan McDonald, Matt Canavan and Pauline Hanson, and Member for Hinkler, Keith Pitt. I am disappointed I can't be with you all tonight, but I assure you I am joining you in spirit. And I am delighted that Santos is hosting you all today and showing you a part of the world that is very important to us. We're also proud to be hosting you as we mark our 70th anniversary and celebrate a major milestone right here at Moomba, where the company first began its journey. You understand what is involved in bringing a vision to reality, to get projects off the ground, and to bring essential products like natural gas to market. A product that delivers energy 24/7, fires the kilns and furnaces that make our bricks, cement and steel, provides the feedstock to make the fertilisers for our farmers, and the polymers that are the building blocks for all kinds of plastics, clothing fibres and chemicals that we use every day. However, you all know that the business of being in business is getting harder. The costs of compliance are killing our industries, and this needs to be a focus of whoever wins the next election. Every day, our gas marketers at Santos have to meet around 800 compliance and reporting obligations for every single transaction to meet the requirements of 3 separate regulators. And the rules are changing all the time. At the start of 2024, we were working to version 72 of the national gas rules. Today, 1 year later, our gas marketers are working off version 82. We all appreciate that compliance and transparency are important and that our markets need to be well regulated. But the most important thing for competition is that we can get more supply of gas into the market. And that is the one thing our regulators are not focused on. Our Narrabri gas project in New South Wales is a case in point. 100% of the gas from Narrabri will go to the Australian East Coast domestic market, where every regulator is forecasting shortfalls. The EIS for that project was submitted in 2017, and in 2024, the production licenses for the project cannot be granted because of ongoing litigation. An approval is no longer an approval, and this will chase desperately needed investment away from Australia. Back in 2020, the Department of Planning said, and I quote, "During its detailed assessment, the department has found it difficult to reconcile the significant community concerns about the Narrabri gas project with the technical advice from experts that the risk of any significant impacts occurring is generally low and can be controlled using standard engineering practice and imposing strict conditions on Santos. When we took a final investment decision on our multi-billion-dollar Barossa gas project off the Northern Territory in 2021, the approvals were in place and the gas had already been sold to customers in Japan and Korea. But again, we learnt the lesson that an approval is no longer an approval. Drilling was stopped with litigation. The pipelaying was stopped with litigation. We also learnt just how far activists will go to pursue their anti-fossil fuels ideology, with the court finding that the Mankara case involved confection and that Indigenous instructions were distorted and manipulated before being presented to the court. This is a damning indictment. By the time we get Barossa operating, we'll have gone through the process of obtaining more than 180 approvals from multiple regulators. It will have taken more than 6 years to get them, with every environmental plan taking an average of 12 to 13 months to be assessed by the federal offshore regulator, NOPSEMA. Barossa and our Darwin LNG Life Extension project have generated about 600 jobs throughout the construction phase and will secure about 350 jobs for the next 20 years of production at the Darwin LNG facility. Billions of dollars in wages and contracts will flow to Territorians. This is economic development the Territory needs, and it is gas our friends and allies in Japan and Korea need to secure the energy supplies of their industries and their communities. And once Barossa is up and running, Santos LNG alone from Australia and PNG will supply around 10% of Japan's gas needs every single day. Our foreign customers paid for and built Australia's LNG industry. It's been a powerhouse for jobs, business opportunities for Australian companies, family-owned businesses, especially in the regions, and importantly, the government revenue that pays for our roads, health and education. Now, some people say we should simply take the gas they paid for off of them and develop no more. This is a sure way to scare foreign investment away from Australia for an eternity. Now, this is Santos' story, but I know that every one of you in this room has your own story to tell about the challenges that you face getting things done to provide the products we know are essential to our modern way of life. The world could not feed itself today, or anytime soon for that matter, without fertilisers made from natural gas. I am proud of what we do, as I know all of you are too. Roughly 1 billion people around the world still live in energy poverty today. There are even more who live without access to the education, housing, sanitation, infrastructure and hospitals that we take for granted to support healthy, fruitful lives. This includes right here in Australia, especially in our Indigenous communities, where frankly, it is simply unacceptable for a country with our means. It is also the case on our doorsteps, in the countries that are our nearest neighbours. Santos operates in Timor-Leste and Papua New Guinea, where our projects are making a huge difference to national income and opportunity, and where our Santos Foundation is doing great work in communities, particularly in health and education. I believe it remains our responsibility as an industry to work towards giving the world the resources that we know are critical for a better future. The energy transition is just as important, but it can't leave people worse off. Otherwise, it just won't happen. America and China are driving their economies through an energy cost advantage. And Australia's best years when we had a similar advantage. Cutting supply of the gas that is needed for firming electricity, heating, and making things will mean energy prices keep rising. There is no economy in the world that will grow if they have unaffordable energy prices. So tonight, I encourage everyone to celebrate National Mining Day and the enormous contributions of our resources sector to Australia. Our industries have played their leading role in turning Australia into the modern, prosperous country that it is today, and that job is far from done. Gas, mining, and energy has so much more to do, and we should be even more ambitious for the future. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mrs. Reinhardt, for bringing National Mining Day to Moomba. Thank you all and have a great evening.
I'm going to introduce to you now the patron of National Mining Day, Tad Watrobe. Please make Tad feel welcome.
Hello everyone. Welcome everyone to another National Mining Day and related industries. It's a very important day on our calendar, not just on each of our calendars, but also on the nation calendar. Thank you firstly to Mrs. Reinhardt, founder and co-patron of the National Mining Day. Thank you for your long-standing support and your courageous effort to stand up for our industry and the best interests of all Australians. Thank you also for missing Kevin and Santos for hosting us here at the Moomba famous gas field. It's great to see actually all the plants, and we've seen it from the aircrafts as well. Mining and its related industry are without any doubt essential to our modern lives. Everything around us, from the food on our plates, to the planes we used to get here, to the cars we drive, hospitals, their medical equipment, and the phones we use in all sorts of ways, really rely on the mining industry. As the Chamber of Minerals Energy in WA reminded this week, there are more than 25 metals sourced from mineral deposits in modern mobile phones, not counting, of course, the other non-metallic minerals, also mostly extracted from our earth. Our industry should be celebrated often. It is bedrock upon which our living standards are built. It provides the metals and minerals required for everyone and everything, of course. And it provides plenty of financial benefits too, including significant export revenues, contributing more taxes than all other industries combined, and paying some of the highest average wages anywhere in the world, which we all enjoy. Politicians and media forget our exports are price takers. We simply cannot keep loading on our government burdens and raise the prices to customers, because it comes back on us. Unfortunately, those contributions are often forgotten. Even worse, many of our politicians and governments choose to wrongly undermine our industry and their policies. Just consider our recent example of taxpayers being billed almost $900,000 for a group of bloody bureaucrats, to set up a pavilion at the COP29 climate change conference, to try to relax it and probably drink a few wines. In addition to all the other expenses of traveling over there, bureaucrats, as you know, flying on fossil fuel power jets, paid for which with tax monies and largely come from the mining and gas sectors, to take about how to stop this very industry. As Tony Seabrook said at National Agriculture Day last night, and our left governments worry about cows bleaching, but we don't worry about them farting. As the coalition waste spokesman said, the UN COP conferences are fast become carbon dioxide super emitters. We don't need that many bureaucrats swanning around the palatial pavilions on the taxpayers' dime, and when the delegations, a fraction of the size, could easily serve Australian interests in reduced carbon emission at the same time. Better still, don't send anyone to all those waste of time, waste of taxpayers' money, international talk fests. Reality is that we need more mining. We need new mines each year, and we need much more gas. The Moomba gas fields which are here today has served Australians reliably for more than 50 years, and hopefully for the next 50 or longer. Australia has vast deposits of most of the metals and minerals the world wants, and vast gas resources too. We shouldn't have any problem with high energy prices in Australia. We should never be facing prospect of heat or eat, as some people do. We should never face the reality of brownouts or blackouts, but we do, simply because governments have chosen to demonize coal and gas and refuse to enable the timely development of our natural resources. We now have far more tape and regulations than we had apparently when the social Whitlam government was in office, but probably was less than half of bureaucrats then. And most of those years since we've had coalition government, as Mrs. Reinhardt said, we don't need Linos. Now is the time for action. We need those like the US will soon have under President-elect Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And because they have wrongly chosen renewable-only electricity system, which is impossible to deliver and which one commentator recently described as having to be connected to a complex and expensive life support system the old grids did not need. Don't forget, solar only generates power between 10 or 25% of the time. Wind's usually up to 30% of the time. The only reason the lights have stayed on in Australia is because of coal and gas. Totally inadequate solar and wind supply cannot power Australia. Let all remind our friends and neighbours, our families, and our politicians, especially their kids, of the essential nature of our mining and related industry. Let's advocate for better policies to see our industry flourish, which will help to improve all Australians' living standards. As Mr. Reinhardt said, if the mining industry declines, so will the standards of living of Australians. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things we started doing a few years back, from time to time at National Mining Day, we recognise individuals that have made an extraordinary contribution to the industry over a long period of time. Tonight we want to do something similar. Can I please ask Professor Ian Plimer to join me on stage? Professor Plimer has endlessly spent a lot of time actually working for the mining industry, developing the mining industry, and trying to grow the mining industry. Professor Plimer, on behalf of all of us in the mining industry, thank you very much and congratulations. Thank you.
Well, it's rare that I'm stuck for words. I started in the industry in February 1968 in Broken Hill, started working underground, and I met unionists who would deliberately destroy equipment. And for me, I couldn't get over it. I could not get over how we had people who, as part of their negotiations, would close the mine. It was absolutely incredible. Since then, from working underground and work as an exploration geologist, I found a couple of ore bodies, and then I moved into the university system, and most universities were very pleased to see me leave. And I'd been a professor in various universities for about 30 years. In more recent times, I'd been writing books, and thanks to our Sky people here like Rowan Dean and Rita Panahi and others have given me airtime to talk about the absolute nonsense that we hear about climate change. Climate has always changed. In the past, no climate change was ever driven by carbon dioxide. In the past, we've had up to 1,000 times more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than now, and what do we have? We had ice ages. Carbon dioxide is plant food. It's not a pollutant. And the more carbon dioxide we put in the air, the better it is. I'm of the girth, and as you can see, Tad's of the girth, where he cannot hug trees any longer. so we feed them with carbon dioxide. It is the gas of life. It is not a pollutant. And so I've been using the past to show that carbon dioxide doesn't drive climate change. What we are doing in building these wind and solar monstrosities is not environmental. It's not for climate. We have opened up a new scam, and this scam is costing us dearly and will continue to cost us dearly. So I thank the organisers for this award. I thank you, Sky and others, for giving me the opportunity to talk common sense in the public. And what we have as a mining community is a huge fight in front of us. We have to be activists. We have to fight stupidity. And our greatest weapon is common sense and the economy. So National Mining and Related Industries Day is a very, very important day to do this, but it's only one of the 365 days of the year that we have to fight for our industry. And great Australians like Mrs. Reinhardt, who's the greatest woman this country's ever produced, great Australians are fighting. You have to join in. So thank you.